hundreds, but we will take this small but mighty crowd. So welcome, just to make sure you are in the right place. We are here to talk about the middle school, high school building project that is well underway. The purpose of tonight is to give you a basic understanding of where we are, and really specifically where we are not yet. Lots of questions around what have we decided? Is it a new building? Is it renovation? We have months to go before we're making those decisions. So to give you a sense of where we are, the work that we've done to date, and to get some feedback on some high-level administrative structures. We're not talking building yet, spaces, locations, flow. We'll get to that this fall and winter. For tonight, this is about the administrative structure, and we want you to walk out of here having a clear understanding of where we are and where we will be going. So I'm going to hand the mic to Joe DeSantis from PMA Associates, who is our owner's project manager, and he is going to give us an update on where we've been to date and where we'll be going overall with the project. You want this? Or you want to
I think I might.
Yeah.
I might want that.
I'm a roamer.
Otherwise, I'll make it no feedback, and no one wants that. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe DeSantis, Senior Director with PMA Consultants, Owner's Project Manager representing Triton for the project. We wanted to start tonight's presentation, slide forward, with a quick discussion about the MSBA Funding Assistance Program, the process, how far along we are, where we aren't yet, as Brian mentioned, and really what the next key steps are. So jumping right into this slide, we have greatly oversimplified the MSBA, Mass School Building Authority Funding Assistance Program process here for the sake of time. Into 9 steps, which the MSBA refers to each step as modules, so we've kind of used that terminology here. Module 1, eligibility period, is complete when Triton was accepted into the program and did what you needed to do in terms of forming the building committee to get rolling after multiple applications to the very competitive program. Oh, I jumped ahead. Module 2 is forming the team. PMA was hired back in January of this year. We hired Doran Whittier Architects in the back there in April of this year. And ever since, we've been working on MSBA Module 3, which is the feasibility study. So the feasibility study in a nutshell involves giving the design team enough information about the existing conditions of the building and the site and the goals for the education for the new or renovated building. We say new, but it could be a renovated building as well in the future. And letting them develop options with that information, and the building committee with input from the public working through refining those options based on what's important to you, refining our selection criteria, and ultimately picking the one preferred option. We are targeting February 2027 for completion of the feasibility study. And then schematic design from there, you are refining that one design to be detailed enough in terms of a construction cost estimate to establish the total project budget. So we'll have things established for that one preferred option that are detailed. Mechanical systems, how will the building be heated and cooled? Structural systems, foundations, exterior materials, interior finishes, that level of detail so that we can set our total project budget from that point forward. We would look to complete schematic design in August of 2027 and work through the MSBA approval process to have us set up for local funding approval in November 2027. So part of that information I mentioned before, we have 2 submissions to the MSBA that are actually part of this feasibility study process. One is called the PDP, Preliminary Design Program, and the other one is called the PSR, the Preferred Schematic Report. We are I'll just go to this slide. I've already accidentally gone to it like 3 times. So, and we have this as a handout somewhere that we can give you as a take home so you don't have to feel like you have to retain all this information. It's also on the project website. We're working through the PDP submission, that Preliminary Design Program submission. In September of this year, Doran Whittier will have preliminary construction options for the building committee to look at. We're going to be submitting that PDP in October of this year. And then we'll be working to submit and finalize the feasibility study in February of 2027. So from September of this year through February of 2027, obviously community feedback is going to be absolutely key in the building committee's decision-making process. There is going to be a lot of different options that are studied. We're looking at 6 through 12 enrollments, 7 through 12 enrollments per the MSBA. We're going to be looking at renovating this building only, renovating a portion of the building and adding new, renovating a large portion of the building and adding something small, or building entirely new for both of those enrollment scenarios. So there's going to be a lot of options on the table, and public feedback will absolutely be key. We're just not quite there yet, and part of the information and the discussion that needs to take place tonight is getting the design team enough information about how the building will be organized. So apologies, I've rambled a little bit here. We have this slide, like I mentioned, as an 11 by 17 handout. Thank you, Michelle, is handing it out from Doran Whittier. Has some details about the process, a little bit more than I went into, has our commonly used acronyms kind of as a cheat sheet there. We have some dates forecasted beyond November 2027, but please note those are just preliminary for now. We're focused on that date, and depending on the option selected, we'll be able to kind of refine our dates from there. We have this one-pager as well, kind of wrapping all of this up. We worked with the school building committee to develop this one-pager as a, the intention of this document was to be able to share information about the project for somebody who's been following all along or just getting involved in an easily digestible format, and gives a project background, next steps in the MSBA process, some milestone dates, little yellow section there, what I mentioned before about that key feedback period, September through January, looking at the options, and then how to get involved. So please take one tonight, share it with a friend. It's online, it's on the Facebook page. Please get involved. Happy to answer any questions anybody may have about the process. And I'll also be here after if anybody wants to ask those kind of questions offline. I know some people don't like raising their hand in front of everybody. There's no questions at this point. I'll turn it back over to Brian.
We want to answer questions as we're going through rather than just to sit and get. So any questions about the high level? Any questions high level about the timeline, the overview, the kind of where we've been and where we're going at a very high level?
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
2029 to 2034 is when you're hoping for it to be completed?
That's the construction phase.
Depending on what?
Yeah. Yeah, so starting in 28, and again, the fully wrapped up is like completely done with the
Need a
MSBA.
microphone? Do I?
It's on
Oh,
video,
that's okay.
so we do, Katie. Yeah.
2034 includes final MSBA audits completed, final reimbursement received by MSBA. So shovels are done, the construction work is well done at that point.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Again, based on the different scenarios, it's more like 2031, 32 that we would be in a building in that time frame, depending on if it's brand new, renovation, addition, code upgrade. Yeah.
Excuse my slowness, but your previous slide, you had like the big orange block that said funding. Does that mean you don't have money secured yet, 100%?
Great question. So the school committee had set aside money in a stabilization account working with our town since 2019 to fund this phase. This is a $1.7 million phase, this roughly 2-year study in early design and making these decisions. That's through module 5 here on the screen. Once we have that, the actual, the preferred design, the schematic design, then we go to the taxpayers, to our 3 towns, and say, here's the cost, and here is the building that you would be purchasing. So no, it is not funded. That November of 27 would be when we would be going to town meeting. So we have to, this project has to pass in each of the 3 town meetings, Newbury, Raleigh, and Salisbury. All 3 have to approve it. And then, again, I don't think there's any miracles happening, and every town will need an override to pay for this, a debt exclusion override. So it's 6 votes needed. A town meeting vote in Newbury, Raleigh, and Salisbury, and then a debt exclusion vote, override vote in Newbury, Raleigh, and Salisbury. Yes. Yeah, so good point Narissa made. So we are currently set to get just shy of 48% reimbursement from the state through the MSBA. That is of eligible costs, right? Eligible costs are not all the costs associated with a project. We have an opportunity to get a few more points through many different building efficiencies and practices, and so maybe we get into the low 50s. It's still not going to be 50% of the total cost. The bond vote, or the borrowing vote, that approval is for the full amount, and then the MSBA will offset that with their portion, and ultimately the towns end up paying their portion. But the number that goes to the towns, we'll remember that in a not too distant past with another regional district in the area, it's that full project amount that goes before the voters. We would be at that point, again, a year from now, have much better clarity around what the actual project cost is and what the impact would be for each town, and then the towns can talk about what the impact is for you as a homeowner in your tax bill. So we're a ways from that, but yes, that November 2027 is that vote.
And what happens if only 2 of the 3 towns? Will you just stay in the current building?
So that would all be part of the discussion. But yes, if it doesn't pass in all 3 towns, this project as designed at that point in the process would not move forward, and we would have to talk about a plan B.
What percentage of MSBA approves districts and schools get approval from towns? So like, do they have like a big success rate? I assume that people are excited about it, so.
Yes, so historically, they have an incredibly high success rate.
Oh, that's good.
In the past couple of years, there's been some local projects that had a little more controversial aspects to it, we'll say. Obviously, one at Whittier and one at Hamilton Wenham. They were for different reasons. There were complications there. But as a long-standing, if you look on their website, they very much, their mantra is, we are in the business of success. They want to make sure that the design team and the OPM is putting a project forward that they believe will pass, because there's a lot of money invested by the district and the consultants and the state if it doesn't pass. So yes, very much a history of success.
And how many overrides do we have until the November 2027 vote? Like, are there a couple of, I know we kind of avoided an override this past meeting, but are there more on the horizon?
I would say that is a way too complicated question to answer here tonight.
Just, getting ready
So
for
we would
the
have-
people chiming in.
Yes. So it would be, right, so we just had our operating budget, the town's operating budgets finalized in May of '26 for fiscal '27. We'll have the same May town meetings. Whether or not there would be an override, I'm not going to sit here and guess. That's a town decision. But that would be in April, May of '27, and then this is projecting fall of '27. So this would be a special town meeting, special meeting specifically about the project, special vote specifically about the project, not at the same time as the general operating budget. All right. I think Jen had a question. Mike's good at this.
Well, one of the questions you answered,
Okay.
November 2027, it would be a special meeting.
Yes.
And then the formula, is it the same as the school budget, the funding from each community?
The allocation, it is. So it is the enrollment percentage. That is the way it's broken down. So the same way, if you look in the budget and look at the stadium account and see the way that the state, obviously a significantly smaller amount, but if you look at that allocation and you can see that fluctuates year over year based on enrollments, that is the same way this project would
So
roll out.
it'll change each year based on your enrollment, so your initial assessment will be different.
So the overall project and borrowing would be a set number. The assessment, we pay the bill, right? We pay the loan. The assessment each year is allocated based on the current enrollment.
Okay.
That fiscal year's
So it
operating
changes.
budget. So it does fluctuate, yeah. Okay. Of course we went right to budget.
Oh, your screen,
Yeah.
your screen went out there.
Okay. We're coming back. It's coming live.
Oh, okay. Did you want me here to press next, or?
No,
Okay.
I think I can.
Want me-
It's gonna wake up anytime now. There we go. Okay. Okay. So, let's see if I can do this without my glasses. All right. So, for introductions, Michelle Rogers, Brad Dorr, Cassie Plunkett, raise your hands in the back. They are the design team, right? So they are the designers, the architects, engineers, and then Joe DeSantis, who is just here, Anthony Lepresti, and Kevin Nigro over here. They are the OPM, the owner's project manager. So we hired first an OPM. They are working on our behalf to make sure that this project goes according to plan. Obviously, experts in dealing with the MSBA. And so they then work with the design team who'll be working through that vote. And then ultimately, there are scenarios where that design team can change post-vote. Highly rare. So we've had great success, as Joe mentioned in the overall timeline. We started, let me just say this, you're not going to hear from the design team tonight because we're not talking about the building yet, right? You're going to keep hearing us say that. We are not talking about windows, doors, roofs, layout, flow. That's not yet, right? We have a higher level discussion that we need to answer tonight. September through February, you can have other opportunities to weigh in on building and what that looks like for the community. You'll remember we started our visioning early. We started about a year early, so we've been at this over a year. We had a small internal team that did some site visits, some just early thinking around what we want this project to be, right? When you partner with the MSBA and they're paying significant money, they require, and it's a good practice, that we look at what do we envision for our future? Is it just rebuilding what we have? No, it's an opportunity to say maybe that's the answer, but also let's look at what the other possibilities might be. So we started that process early. Internally, spring of last year, as of last fall, we had 2 larger group sessions. There was some parents had volunteered. I put out an APB, and there was a group, about a dozen parents, about a dozen students, educators, administrators, about 45 people that came together to start doing this visioning, to start looking at what it is we would like in a building. Again, not the roof, windows, doors, not the flow, but the actual product. What is it that we want from the space, what it allows us for our educational model, the community resource, and the needs of the community. And so that's where we've been to date. So we started early, and now we had a bit of a pause. We keep saying this. It's not normal that we start early, so we had this 6-month lull while the full design team and OPM was selected. But we, through that process, in our statement of interest, which is the first step, it's the application to the MSBA. We submitted 3, 22, 23, 24, and 24, they said yes. We propose looking at a 6 through 12 and a 7 through 12 model. 6 through 12 brings 6th grade up here. The idea being it would be a 6 to 8 middle school, 9 through 12 high school. That was the early thought. And then a 7 through 12 model, which is the grade level we have here on the campus, and then we committed to studying whatever the possibilities are there. So that is now a requirement. We have to study both of those options through February. When Joe was talking about those deliverables, we submit a first document. It's called the ED program with the preliminary design program. The PDP is submitted it's largely done in September, submitted in October. We're then going to spend September, October, November, December, January, February talking through all those options. And then we have a preferred schematic report where we start to refine things. We can't rule out either of those options until PSR in February. So tonight, what we're getting feedback from you on specifically is where we've landed, what I've proposed to the school committee. Narissa will share some thoughts about that discussion. And then ultimately, the committee will make a decision in August about just those organizational structures, not 6 to 12 or 7 to 12. Those both still the options. A preferred layout, if you will, or organization for a 6 through 12 and a 7 through 12. So ultimately, through the visioning over the last year, we arrived at goals. And again, this is input from across the board. Environment is flexible to support hands-on, experiential, non-typical learning for everyone. Anyone who enters the building will experience a safe and welcoming environment in which individuals feel valued, connected, and a sense of community and belonging. Spaces that prioritize physical and mental health practices. Spaces that support collaboration and connection. A place that will allow students to explore pathways toward being responsible, contributing citizens and adults. And the building will promote a sense of district-wide community and create a sense of pride, right? Great high-level goals. From here forward, those are the goals that feed into this ED program, a multi-100-page document, that will then charge Doran Whittier and the design team to create buildings, or I should say create a building and multiple options that meet these needs. So those were the high-level goals that emerged. The major themes across all the activities and work that was done, we have to prioritize student experience. Again, that theme around belonging and community, more student choice, voice, and independence, learning that prepares students for a changing world, greater collaboration, creativity, and innovation, supporting student well-being and connection, and moving beyond one-size-fits-all learning. So again, as we continue to refine this, it's hard to have a building that meets all these needs. Again, that becomes the design challenge. Around teaching and learning, I won't read all of these. A lot of this is repetitive. But these results were from those hours and hours of visits and discussions, again, with multiple community members, families, or parents and guardians and teachers and students, to really look at what we want in the experience. Again, not the building, but the experience for our students in the community that lives within the building. So ultimately, we landed with design implications. Again, these will all point to a design, but we are not designing yet, right? We do not have the questions around, are we moving towards a renovation or addition, or will the building have, or do you think we will? None of that has been answered. That's all going to be teased out with the building committee throughout the fall and into the winter. And then those questions will be answered, multiple points for you to share thoughts and feedback around whether a 6 to 12 or 7 to 12 option is desired, first of all, and then within those, what the building ultimately looks like. And it is a building, back to that very important question, it's great to think big, but it has to be a building that the communities can afford and can stand behind, and we can build support for. So at this point, the discussion is around a 6 through 12 and 7 through 12 option. Again, both have to be on the table. As a result of the visioning and the discussions to date, lots of follow-up discussions, for a 6 through 12 model, I will say when we had those visioning sessions in the fall, there was more interest in a 6 through 12 than we first anticipated. And then ultimately, through all the discussions, looked at various ways of organizing a school 6 through 12, but ultimately, what everyone was saying, inside, externally, otherwise, the value of bringing 6th grade up to this campus would be to have a true middle school, to have a 6, 7, 8 middle school and a 9 through 12 high school. Same as it is today, separate administration, separate schools, sharing a campus. We're not growing by leaps and bounds, so it's not going to be that all of a sudden things change, but it would be a 6 through 8. Where we landed was it would be a 6 through 8 middle school, separate operating organization, 9 through 12 high school, separate operation, obviously aligned schedules, sharing resources. We're sharing resources in 6 of the departments, VPA, math, across the board. So that would continue with an aligned schedule, but they would continue to operate as 2 distinct schools. 7 through 12 provides a little more opportunity for us to think outside the box. So, so just on the screen, right? So we have the various options. Where we landed was this B, which keeps 6, 7, 8 separate as a school from 9 through 12. For 7, there were a lot of other iterations that we talked through. One of the key factors that came up in conversations time and time again is to the detriment having a transition from grade 6 to 7 and another transition from grade 8 to 9. So we currently have 2 transitions. Students come from their elementary experience. Their first experience on this campus is the middle school, but it's a short-lived 2 years, and then they transition to the high school. So in C, you've got that typical 7, 8 separate school, a 9 through 12 separate school. Where the group had landed was that a 7 through 12 would be most effective as a single school, operating under a single administration, a single principal, support team, structures, same common language, expectations. Thereby, we remove a whole transition. Students stay pre-K through 6 at their elementary school, transition to this campus in grade 7, into the 7 through 12 school, and that is their experience for 7 years. We get rid of one whole transition. Obviously, 7th graders are different than 12th graders. They ride the buses together, so there's lots of opportunities where they already interact. But having a 7 through 12 school as a all-day kids together obviously requires that we do some thinking around how we would break that up. So in option D, one of the things we considered was an upper school, lower school. 7 to 9 lower school, 10 to 12 upper school. Developmentally, socially and emotionally, makes a lot of sense. Structurally, organizationally, there's a lot of challenges there. Someone had raised the question, well, do the freshmen feel like they're actually being brought down to the middle school? So we had lots of discussions around that. And while it is a good developmental model, organizationally and structurally, it's challenging. So then we went to these E&F models where, again, single combined school. In E, the idea was to create a physically separate space for grade 7, a 7th grade academy, if you will. So you transition here, you're with everyone all the same, all the time, almost a separate school, but kind of like a physically, an academy within the school. 8 through 12 operate together. And then in F, completely connected, it's the same experience from 7 through 12. So where we landed, and this is what was proposed to the school committee, and ultimately the decision the school committee will need to make about the administrative structure, is a 7 through 12 single school. Again, this is not the 6 through 12 model. The 6 through 12 model is still on the table as an option over here. That it would be 7 through 12 would be a single school, single administrative structure, single, common language, common culture. And from there, we would not necessarily physically separate 7th grade, but create a 7th grade academy. Again, lots of work for the design team to figure out how that would work, but we talked about having the ability to have a teaming structure. In some way, have an opportunity where we understand developmentally that 7th grade year is a big transition year. So while we want it to be part of the school and the community, some way of recognizing and carving that out. Grades 8 and 9, scheduling wise, academically, it's pretty easy to schedule them together. So where 7th grade would largely be scheduled and operate, I don't want to say independently, but more independently, we would have the opportunity to schedule 8th and 9th graders in a way that they would spend the majority of their time with 8th and 9th graders. And then 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, when you get into more advanced coursework and stuff, obviously you tend to mix, and it's based on the need and the specialty. So that is where we landed with our recommendation to the committee. It's a 6 through 12, or in the 6 through 12 option that remains on the table, we keep 2 independent schools, a 6 through 8 middle school, a 9 through 12 high school. In the 7 through 12 model, it's a single unified school, single administration, single culture, common language, but we find a way to have a 7th grade academy experience, schedule 8th and 9th graders in a way that's developmentally appropriate, and then 10th, 11th, and 12th operate more cohesively. So I'm going to hand it to you to talk about, so this is a decision that will ultimately, this piece, again, this piece will be a school committee decision, right? They hire and fire me, hopefully just the hire part. And then they set policy in the budget. So this is about an administrative structure where they'll make the decision, and then once this decision's made on August 19th, they hand it back to the building committee and the design team, who's chomping at the bit to know this piece of information, because this is a key component of what that ed program looks like. Because then when you start to develop concepts for what a building looks like, obviously the flow matters. So, Narissa. You know what I should just say? Before you talk. Or maybe, you know what? You talk and then we'll do questions.
No, that's fine, go ahead.
So, are there questions about that? Yes, there are. Yeah.
Oh my God, what was I going to ask? Oh, do we have to pick either 6 to 8 or 7, or like, do we have to include 6th grade in the middle school if we choose to have a completely separate middle school? if that makes sense. So it's either,
does make
it's
sense.
either separate buildings, 6 through 8, or 7 through 12, all connected.
So at this point, the decision that will be made eventually is it a 6 to 12 or 7 to 12 building? That's the decision we can't make yet.
Okay.
Within a 7 to 12, we have the ability to make a decision around how a 7 through 12 is broken up.
Okay, so
in
sorry,
here-
there, it is an option C, I didn't see
So
that.
C
I was
is-
just thinking about like 6th
Yep.
grade, that has to be, okay,
Yep.
got it. All right,
And-
thank you.
And just to answer that, so what we decided was the middle school will be a tick under 300 students this year, high school right around 500, that as an independent school, there are more benefits to creating a single school structure and community, single administration, single expectations. So that's why we went away from that as a recommendation. That is an option that could be decided, yes. I think, Katie?
I'm probably repeating what she just said. As far as the choices that they're discussing is 6 to 8th, and then a separate school with a high school, and then if they do 7 to 12, do you have to have one school? Am I misunderstanding that? Like,
We do not have to.
Okay.
That is my recommendation, to have a single school.
To have a
As we've
single school.
continued, the student enrollment has to continue to decline.
right, but are we hoping that that's going to change, or,
Enrollment?
yes?
I would love for that to change.
Right.
The design.
We're talking long-term, so if you're talking about building a school or having it completed by 2034, maybe there'll be more kids in the community that are coming in, and then,
So I would say to you, the data does not support a massive increase in student enrollment.
Yeah.
Our towns continue, to varying degrees, depending on the town, continue to be more residents non-school age, without school age students. The current enrollment is around 800 on this campus. We didn't go over this, but the design enrollment, it's on the charts in the back, the design enrollment for a 7 through 12 is just shy of 900 students. So in those factorings, they
Yeah.
do give us about 100 more students
right,
as far as a design enrollment for space and all the needs than what we have today.
yes, okay.
And then I should say too, right, part of this discussion with the design team is this balance between what we want and what is a reality, both what the towns can afford, as well as something that can adapt to the needs. And we talked about that, that 7th grade academy would be lovely, but if in the future we decided the structure changed and 10 years from now enrollment goes way up or down and we decide to bring 6th grade over, we have to have a building that adapts to the needs and adapts to the enrollments that we have. And so the building, it can't be so specific that it doesn't allow us to make shifts as we need.
Because like even the elementary level, the numbers are really varied, because I know at SES there's, what is it, like 2 fifth-grade teachers, so like, you had all them coming to 7th grade, the numbers obviously go up and down so often. That
Yes.
really may not.
There have been fluctuations on enrollment. Rowley saw an increase in their foundation enrollment of 17 students, not a huge number, while the other two towns still went backwards this past year. That was the first increase in quite a while.
Might be worth noting the 85% utilization that MSBA builds.
Oh, good point.
You're on a roll, so.
All right, Joe said I can talk about it. You chose to give me the mic. So when we design a building, we have to have spaces that guarantee take a classroom. We literally, in this ed program, model out the schedule in all the variable iterations. Those rooms need to be used at least 85% of the time. So we can't build a building that has a bunch of extra space. That's not true. We could. The MSBA will say that's not reimbursable. So,
Because in my mind, I'm thinking, whatever, I know you guys already decided all this, so I'm kind of late for this conversation, I guess, but 6th
didn't
grade,
decide yet.
there's
That's
gonna be
feedback
a
tonight.
lot of empty rooms, like,
Yep.
you just built or fixed or whatever Raleigh school system, so I'm guessing there'll be those empty classes, so, is it wasted space there, and then it, across the
So again, we're The enrollment for the designs that will be created by Doran Whittier are based on 895 students, grade 7 through 12, or 1,070 if it's 6 through 12. So that is all the space we get, and then it's a matter of being creative with that and trusting the design team to come up with a plan that allows us to adapt as needed. I will say it's a heck of a lot easier to adapt a middle school and a high school than it is an elementary where you've got self-contained classrooms. So.
Sorry, I have two questions. Do we know the percentage of students that choice out?
I don't know the
roughly?
percentage, I know the numbers.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just thinking from that growth target, that would be the group of people we would want to bring back into the fold.
Yep.
So I was curious what that percentage was. And then if I just read back, so the way that I went to school was C, or like choice C or whatever the other choice was for the other breakdown. And if I'm reading it back, because we're talking about the higher level structure, what I'm between the lines hearing is that F gives you more flexibility. So that as things change, you're not stuck with two buildings, that you don't have as much elasticity to move kids, shift schedules, and accommodate if there was a huge influx from one side to the other. But does it fundamentally change the way that the learning is deployed? I was sitting in classrooms with 7th graders, 8th graders. We weren't mixed, like, just curious on that side of it.
Yeah, so the 7 through 12 model, and we're talking about the building. I said we weren't going to talk about the building, but we'll talk about the building. So we keep talking about in modules, right? And a module could be interdisciplinary. It could be grade level. So like I said, we envision 7th graders in that model working with 7th graders all day. 8th and 9th graders may be more throughout the building, but would be interacting largely with 8th and 9th graders. So it's not, I don't know if that answers the question. So it's,
I think I'm just trying to understand the newer ideas.
yes, yeah. And so think of it as a concept, not yet a building, right? So this is what we ultimately decide to say, here's what the charge is. Now all the options, 6 through 12 and 7 through 12, and all the iterations, whether it's a renovation, rebuild, knockdown, all of those have to meet this guideline. So this is really a vision, yeah, a concept. Peter.
You know, to lift up, you know, barriers so people are friendly. What about, like, you're not mentioning anything about handicapped people and special needs there. They got to be somehow integrated in this whole thing too, you know, from.
Peter, you've gone straight to design. Yes, those absolutely, again, to the level of detail, we're designing spaces and we're talking about how special education spaces are integrated in with departments right next to classrooms. All of that is part of the design, right? So we're just saying as a general concept where the 7 through 12 operating structure lands and where a 6 through 12. All of that is design that we'll talk throughout the fall into the winter. Yeah. I mean, we have, but no decisions, and they're not in paper and designs yet. Yeah, yeah. Ronnie.
Hi.
Hi.
So I guess here's where I ask you, can I give opinion, not questions? Not yet. Okay. Because you know me, because of my hat I have, I
Yes.
have professional opinions, but
Yes.
I will wait, Narissa.
So yes, more clarifying questions. And let me just say, what we're going to ask you to do is there's charts in the back that ask some probing questions about each of these two models, and we want to hear from you to actually have you tell us specifically what your thoughts are on this. Who had the mic? You had the mic, yes.
I have two questions.
Yes.
One, just the follow-up from Kate's, if you could respond to how many children are school choice that we would ultimately like to see brought back.
Yes, so there are currently, there are probably about 100 and, don't quote me, it's over 100, about 125. We've done work to try and understand why people choice. The majority of those would not come back. I do believe we can cut that number in half at least and not replace. So our goal has been when a student choices and they graduate, not replace them with another student. So yeah, so there would be that, the 100 students, that is a larger, that 895, about 100 more than exists today, assumes everything from resident changes to choice changes. But yes, we would expect, and that is the trend when you get a new building. We know, people who have told me, I'm leaving because of the building. And then, again, won't get into the other reasons, but yeah.
It's important to note too that that enrollment number, it also looks at new developments. So we had to go to the 3 towns and say, what's coming up down the road? What's even a vision on your horizon for new buildings? What are your building permit rates look like? What do birth rates look like? So all of those things are factored into this, and that was after the 3A votes. So that was also included as part of the discussions. And they have, the MSBA has a department that works specifically on these projections, and they have a very high accuracy rate. They told us basically that they've only had one project that sort of started to change direction away from their projection, to the point that the project was mid-project was the course of the project was altered. Sorry.
Just to say, getting into the details, we can design a building that's larger than what the MSBA says. They just don't participate in that. That's a fully local dime.
And then my second question was just what the national and even global precedent is around having a 7 to 12 school, and what the research is about the efficacy, the concerns.
So I would say to you, ideally, a 6 to 8 middle and a 9 through 12 high school is the best design. Hands down. I would sit and defend that. I think when we get to factors around the cost of bringing the 6th grade over with the space that it would require for those additional 170 students, and the lack of an argument of what we would use the space for at Salisbury and Newbury and Rowley, I think it's a challenge. But the 7 through 12 model is becoming more normal, largely in smaller districts where the enrollment has declined, and it's not feasible or logical to continue to have 2 separate operating schools, 2 separate principals. More recent, I don't think there's a lot of longitudinal data, but it is a more recent phenomenon. For us, what we've talked about is there are some other schools in our area that have rebuilt buildings and made it a 7-8 middle and a 9 through 12 high school with a single administration, and that doesn't work culturally, right? You can't be the principal of 2 different schools. If you're the principal, it is the school, right? And we are the school. That doesn't mean we don't find ways to create structures and programs to protect what is developmentally appropriate for 7th and 8th graders. But I don't, so that's been kind of one of our, if it's going to be a 7 to 8, it doesn't make sense to try and have 2 schools with a single administration. And it's largely been driven by that single administration and the costs. Yeah.
So in terms of with option F with the 7 through 12 school, I'm understanding the benefit is mostly efficiency, right? In terms of the building needs, costs, all those sorts of things, right? And then the idea is that experientially you can kind of do what's appropriate based on age and development. Is that more or less right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very, very well said, in far fewer words than me. Okay. Not shocking. Sorry. I know.
I mean, you kind of just answered it based on her question, but I was going to say, I mean, I haven't been in 7th grade for 35 years, but I remember it being very shocking to suddenly be with 12th graders.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first saw your chart combining all those grades into one, sounded really intimidating to a 7th grader and potentially 8th grader. But it sounds like you have a little bit of a plan to isolate and not isolate, but structure it so they're not completely immersed. Plus, the 12th grader is thinking about college nowadays in those grades and taking college level courses. So,
absolutely, and programmatically there are huge benefits to starting working in a single school, 7 through 12. But obviously, students ride the bus, like I said earlier. They ride the bus together already, so it's not like they don't spend any time. But we have to find ways to create those structures that honor and recognize those differences. And so part of the discussion has been making a decision now, right? We don't expect to move into a building, again, totally depends on what it is, renovation, addition, right? 2030, 2031, right? We're talking 4 or 5 years away. Our goal is to make these administrative changes over the coming years and make these shifts so that when the building is done, the building then fits what we've developed and have worked toward, rather than, and if you follow any projects, lots of great ideas and concepts, we don't get prepared for it, and then you move into a building and you don't use the building the way it was intended. When we toured, we had one district that has $800,000 worth of furniture in storage because there was never any training to talk about how they were going to use those spaces. We have vowed to not spend money and waste money on things like that. So this type of administrative structure would be something that once it's decided is something we start putting wheels in motion towards. Doesn't happen overnight, but something that would start transitioning sooner rather than later, so that by the time we have the building, we open it and it fits what we've grown to expect. Jen?
Hello. You touched on it a little bit, but what is the implication on the elementary schools if you brought the 6th grade?
Implication on space?
Yeah.
So
Or just in general?
Yeah. So obviously that would then be pre-K through pre-K through 5 schools. In the ed program that we'll be submitting by October, we have to build the case for what we would use that space for. Again, if the MSBA is going to say we'll participate and pay 50% of the costs, they want to know it's a 50-year investment. You live in these schools. We have a lot more space in Salisbury and Newbury, Pine Grove. I think I could build a pretty strong case, right? It's the one school that's maintained enrollment, ticked up a little bit. And so that will be a challenge, not insurmountable. I mean, if ultimately the community decides that 6 through 8 middle and 9 through 12 high school is the right solution, we'll have numbers, we'll have opportunities to talk about what that would mean and make the decision accordingly. But that will be part of the challenge because again, we have to keep studying that when we present that to the MSBA, is because there isn't a real strong case. I mean, there are other opportunities in Newbury. We had the Council on Aging there. It's now not there. So, I mean, there's other things to look at. But I think it's probably a challenging argument to make. Who was it? It was Bernie.
Students actually have a 6th grade in that, because I don't think they're that common, and what's
The normal is a 5 to 8 middle or 6 to 8 middle. That is typical. Pre-K to 4, sometimes early childhood, is if you look up elementary, pre-K to 4, middle is 5 to 8 or 6 to 8, and high school is 9 to 12. It varies. Again, if you go to larger cities and towns with multiple schools and multiple middle schools, it tends to be a more traditional model. In our neck of the woods, a 7 to 8 isn't uncommon. The 5 to 8 or 6 to 8 is more common still, even in our area.
So would it be possible to kind of actually attach local schools that are based on each of these options? We have kind of concrete analogs. So which school is 7 to 12 connected? Which local school district is E and D and C? So that there's actually some kind of concrete familiarity with what's actually going on.
Yeah, I would say
alternatives.
There aren't any that I know of, aren't any 7 through 12 single administration, one free roaming 7 through 12. I don't know of any E's. D's, I'm sure they may exist. They don't exist in this area. C is the more typical here, and where it is with a single administration, it works, but it can be more problematic. So I don't know if I would want to attach names, good, bad, or otherwise.
Well, I wasn't making a judgment on it.
Yeah,
It was
no,
just
absolutely.
the actually physically, so for example, Ipswich has the middle school and the high school on this exactly the same campus. They're separated spatially. Does it go from 7 and 8? I don't know, but does it go 7 to 8 or 6 to 8 in Ipswich?
5 to 8.
5 to 8. All right, so it was just a suggestion, so.
So is there any lane where you would keep one admin if they're separate? So, I mean, I went to high school and middle school here, and I remember feeling pretty close to the high school when I was in middle school. So, like, is there any way you could keep them separate? Because I do feel like, I mean, as a parent, as a teacher, the 7 to 12 model, like, would freak out a lot of parents. I personally, like, would feel like I hear people already chiming in about it. Like, I don't want I'm just saying. But I know, like, administration is a big part of the budget. So having, like, is that, like, not an option? You don't, like, school committee does not want to do one admin for both schools. Is that what you're saying? Is that, like?
I definitely don't want to say what school committee thinks. I'll let Narissa talk to that. I think it's challenging if you have them as two distinct schools. So if we move forward as the middle school and the high school as it exists today, the idea of us being able to think outside the box and break down kind of negative norms and have a 7 through 12 cohesive experience becomes really challenging. That doesn't mean that within a 7 through 12 single administrative unit, if you will, that there can't be carve-outs for 7th grade and 7th grade or 8th grade even, right? That's still on the table.
It would still be like, there would still be a degree of separation, like, and physical separation.
There may be in the building, yeah, the actual, that decision hasn't been made.
About, like, I hear my friends saying that I don't like it.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
maybe that's just me.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the feedback we need,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's more of a clarification. So is the 7 through 12 model because of administration cohesiveness, or is it because of population? I heard two answers and maybe I didn't.
7 through 12 model.
F.
It is, so because our total enrollment is so small, 7 through 12, it makes sense to have a single administrative unit, right? Economically, as we continue to have challenging budgets year over year. We're now then trying to decide what's the best structure within that, because it's a single building in school doesn't mean we can't have different structures within that. Operating structures, but within the same school. Can you describe what that administrative structure would look like? Would it be separate vice principals? So what we've talked about to date is a single principal and likely 3 assistant principals. And then we've talked about different ways of, we have not decided on, is it a assistant principal that works specifically with 7, 8, 1, 9 through 12, 1, 11, I'm sorry, 9 to 10, and 1, 11 through 12. That is one option. We haven't specifically said that's the way it would be. Because I think we would want to work through that over the coming years before we move into this space to determine ultimately what is the right structure.
Hey, Brian, quick question. What's the impact on curriculum that's taught to the students if you have one administration versus 2? Like if I'm a math teacher, we can make sure things are coordinated all the way up. Or I was in another school system where the high school and the middle school were trying to get on the same page teaching Spanish.
Yep.
And they weren't on the same page, so.
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of, because we now have an aligned schedule, Matt can speak to this, right? And ABC too, we spend a lot of time talking 7 through 12, but it is, I would say it's all positive, right? The reality of a single department, if you will, talking and working 7 through 12 allows for better alignment for that full 6-year experience, as well as allowing and making sure that we have a schedule that allows a student who may be ready to move up, right? move up to Algebra 2, and they're ready to go and they otherwise wouldn't be there, to have those opportunities. So.
Ryan, to me, it sounds like it's something that maybe, parents should have a vote on that or something, because it's a fundamental, that's a big change for, some, schools. I just think it might be something that maybe each parent should have some say or vote on, or something,
Which part specifically? Say it again?
So we need to move, because otherwise we're not gonna have any time for feedback at all. Not saying you talked a lot. So, questions are awesome, but like we have a relatively hard stop here at the end. So, I think that's great, but the whole point of tonight is to start to get feedback from people, right? We need to have feedback to make a decision from parents, from students, from community members, and this is part of how to do this. So when the school committee looked at this, we were given the recommendations. We were also shown the other options that were looked at, right? And the decision was made to essentially throw open the doors and have you come here and say, we've seen the same thing the school committee has seen now. Tell us what you like about it. The preferred options for both 6 through 12 and 7 through 12. Tell us what you don't like about it, right? And then tell us if something was changed in that model a little bit, what's the thing that sells you? What's the thing that says essentially like this, make this little tweak, or if this was part of it, I would be in favor of that model that we're most strongly considering right now. The school committee is doing that tonight. We're doing the same thing. There's going to be an identical session on August 11th. And then the school committee has a discussion, and to keep this project moving along, because every month we delay can add up to $1 million worth of additional cost to this project, just because of the way that construction costs go over time. We need to make a decision to move this forward, and then that will start flowing into these design changes, and then we're going to be bringing back people. I'm going to take off my school committee hat and put on my school building committee hat. We're going to be asking people to come back and actually look at those designs. So renderings and layouts, not, this is where the electrical cable goes, but more about like, here's where a media center is and it's approximately this size and this is what's around it, that type of thing. So I'll hand this back to you, but I think if we can take questions at the end, this is so helpful, but we're in the weeds, and honestly, the school committee needs your feedback.
I'm not allowed to talk anymore. So again, just to your point, Peter, absolutely, parents need feedback. Community needs to provide feedback. There'll be a lot more clarity, as Narissa just said. This is a high-level concept of how the administrative structure would work, how that actually works to the questions, excuse me, the questions you're asking about the flow, right? How does special ed integrate in the building? That's all the design. And before a decision on 6 through 12 or 7 through 12, that high-level decision's met, or what a preferred design would look like, all of that will be teased out in various not schematic designs, but different design options, costs, all of that becomes part of the discussion. So tonight, the design team is listening intently. So tonight, I'm gonna ask you, there's chart paper in the back. There'll be a handful of tables. Go to one table, and each table will have 2 charts. One chart is a 6 to 12, big chart, 24 by 36. One chart is a 6 through 12, scenario 2. One chart is a 7 through 12, scenario 1. You'll see the design enrollment on a 6 through 12 is 1,070. Design enrollment on a 7 through 12 is 895. Say it again. One more time. Okay. So based on the feedback of what we're saying, is that at right now where all of the discussions have landed is in a 6 to 12 model, we would have a 6 to 8 middle school and a 9 to 12 high school. That's that scenario. In a 7 through 12 model, we would have a single school, single administration, carve out very specifically 7th grade in some sort of academy, still work with 8th and 9th graders through scheduling, and then the rest of the building operates. That's as granular as we need to get. And based on that, I'm going to ask you, there's very specific questions. It's not do you like it or not? It's very specifically, tell me what you're thinking. And so if you can just get into small groups, 4 or 5, you can write on those papers. We were going to do sticky notes, but I think you can write right on there. People can write individually. If someone would rather, I'm a private and I just like my sticky notes, you can do sticky notes and stick them on there. You can do it as a group. You can do it individually with sticky notes. But each table will have the 2 scenarios laid out there, and we'll just float around. If people have questions, happy to answer questions that way. Does that make sense? Okay, and then when we're gonna stop you, and we're just gonna quickly process real quick. Again, there's no consensus, there's no decisions, there's no votes tonight. It's feedback, and I'm hearing feedback, right? I'm definitely hearing feedback. We're gonna do this again and have more discussions. All right? Okay, so pick a table. All right. Could I have everyone's attention again, please? You can just stay right where you are. Okay, here's how we're going to wrap this up. We're making no decisions tonight. We are taking no votes tonight. There is no consensus tonight. This is feedback, and this has been incredible feedback, very helpful feedback. But as you are, I'm going to pass around the mic, and anyone that's interested in sharing just a thought about what you talked about on these prompts that are on the paper. Is anyone interested in sharing an idea? Jen volunteered you. I know. We're going to keep the paper too and share this information out, but just to have a quick discussion, just to wrap this up. Yes. I don't know, that's not working.
Oh, no, wait, she's back to a red light. There, now she's not green.
Okay, so again, from a viewpoint of a social worker for 35 years working in a school that works with emotionally disturbed kids, in my opinion, the 6 through 12, developmentally where our children are now, this creates a more resilient adult ready to be out in the world, a 6 through 12 model. There's a lot of research that talks about that. But we also have a lot of anxious kids, so I think the downside of that is you need to create more support to be able to help those 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders who still have that anxiety. However, financially, this, you know, that's always the question about, because if I wear my old hat of select board member, I know that that's also weighs into it. But if we want to create successful adults, this is the better model, hands down.
Thank you, Ronnie. So I'm going to rephrase that just because we're not deciding 6 through 12 or 7 through 12 tonight. So in a 6 through 12 model, you believe a 6 to 8 middle school and a 9 through 12 high school is the way to go. Raise your hand if you agree with that. That if we decided 6 through 12, that it should be 2 independent schools, a 6 to 8 middle and a 9 to 12 high school. Okay, largely people feel that's good. All right, other thoughts? Sorry, we only have one mic.
So a lot of what we were talking about was that ultimately the goal is for this to pass in all 3 towns. Being a Rowley resident, I know how hard that can be in town meeting and in votes. So for me, trying to think through, are we gaining more people to say yes if we have a cheaper alternative with the 7 through 12, because that likely will be financially cheaper than the 6 through 12 model? Are we gaining enough people to warrant choosing that option? And I think that that would require some marketing to help people understand what benefits come from that. Have the opportunity to pursue coursework and athletics that are advanced. That gets talked about and marketed, if that's the way that we go. What we also talked about is that we just don't want to lose, if people are going to say no to the cost of this building no matter what, and the cost difference between the 2 models doesn't sway the no's, are we then losing some people who don't have the buy-in for the 7 through 12 that may say they just want to go somewhere else because they don't like that model? So we didn't have an answer. We didn't know which.
Yes. Didn't hear that in the microphone. Not on. Yes, agreed. And so that, those decisions in the various options. So tonight, again, the focus has been on if we choose 6 to 12, where do we land? If we choose 7 to 12, where do we land? But yes, all great thoughts. Is one of these on? This one's on. Anyone else want to share?
Oh, I was just gonna jump off that and say that was my hugest concern, like whatever gets this passed, because this building's gotta go. Like, not to be blunt, but it's pretty old, so whatever model gets people, and I know the history in this area, and nobody wants to buy a school, so whatever gets it done is the best model, so I agree with them. You gotta start marketing.
Okay, that's
School committee, you gotta start marketing whatever model, but sell that.
all right. Jenny, did you want to?
I work at the district as the community resource liaison, so my job is to support all the 5 schools and bring in programming that supports the students. So on administration, it would be easier, right, to bring in programming and opportunities because you're dealing with just like one admin team, I guess. But on that flip side as well, Jen and I are running a middle school group after school, and so things we've heard from them is that the current middle school students have expressed how it is hard for them to get here for 7th grade with the 3 districts coming together for the first time, and then making new friends from different districts, and then only spending like 1 more year with them before having to do another transition to that high school piece, right? So it's just a lot of like fast transitions. I think 6 through 12 would bring the 3 districts together earlier, which would be nice. But I don't know, I think that with this one, I think there will be emotions of students and parents who might be overwhelmed by that model of the 7 through 12. But I just was, okay.
I've heard multiple people say parents would be overwhelmed 7 through 12 single school.
Some, not all, but yes.
But I heard that several times. Do people feel like in general like that is a theme?
There's not many parents here.
I get it,
And
right?
there's not many young parents here. They're just going to get misinformation from Facebook, and then it's going to be a big thing. Like, people don't come to meetings. They don't. So it's like, that's what you're up against.
Yeah,
That was my
reaction
yeah.
was similar to her, where you said something about, I was like, hell no, excuse my language, but then when you explained the reason why, it stuck, and I was like, okay, I can buy in, but I don't know if, that's why I said you gotta really market why.
Right, so I think there was some discussions on Facebook, are we offering these virtually? And even, is there another way to get feedback on this? Like, can we show this video and say, if you watch this video, you can share feedback? But it's hard, because without the context, it's scary, right? It's frightening, it's not just scary. So, again, we'll do this on August 11th again, and there'll be other opportunities for feedback. These are so annoying. This one's working now. Okay, so again, no decisions tonight, just feedback. I'm going to run over there and, do you want me to just wrap up, or do you want to wrap up, Matt? Will you wait?
those tables there, and when we move to our meeting, which is going to be shortly, you can change, if you misunderstood, change anything you need to change, because we're going to review those after. So those tables will be there all night. You can stay here until 9 if you'd like. But I think we're going to, yeah. Why are we voting? Go back, yeah. But on that chart right there, we're looking for positive and negatives on F, E, and F. So like I said, those tables will be out there. these are all the ways you can stay connected. We have an email address, Facebook, YouTube. And again, there will also be another one on August 11th. Please, anyone you can tell, your neighbors, friends, family members, anyone. We want as many people as possible to come here in different age groups. Like younger students primarily is important because they don't come as much. Yeah, and then there's a school building committee if you want to stay for another hour and a half and listen to us talk. Oh, and you wanted to talk about the exit ticket, you can talk about that.
Yes, so as you're going out, we obviously will collect all this feedback. We'll share it out publicly. It's not just to the folks who showed up, but we'll share this out. Gather the feedback from August 11th as well. If you take a screenshot of that QR code or the URL is there, quick little exit ticket, give us just kind of unfettered thoughts based on everything you thought here. Again, what we're talking about tonight is not whether 6 to 12 or 7 through 12. That's a this fall and winter discussion. It's about in the 6 to 12, what do we prefer to be the administrative structure and organizational structure for a 6 to 12, and then for a 7 through 12, what would be the structure overall? Because we've got to model both of those in the proposal that we're sending to the MSBA early fall by late September. Okay? Thank you all. Appreciate you coming tonight. And again, as Matt said, tell everyone you can, show up on August 11th. And you're welcome back too, right? If you walk away and think, oh, we didn't talk about, I forgot to mention any of that, great, come back August 11th. We're gonna do the same thing again, but if the conversation goes in another direction, that's great. So thank you all.